Imagine a wall of concrete 128 meters tall, holding back 185 cubic kilometers of water. That's 185 trillion liters. Enough water to fill 74 million Olympic swimming pools. Behind this wall sits the world's largest reservoir by volume, bigger than any lake humans have ever created. For nearly 70 years, it's powered millions of homes across 2 entire countries. But right now, as we speak in December 2025, this dam is quietly falling apart. Concrete is cracking from the inside. The foundation is eroding away. And the gates that control water flow, they're warping and breaking. Engineers say if this dam fails catastrophically, 3.5 million people downstream face mortal danger. Economic losses could exceed $20 billion. That's why there's a $294 million international rescue mission happening right now. A desperate race against time, drought, and physics to save this aging giant before it's too late. This is the story of Kariba Dam, the world's largest reservoir, and the 2 crises that could destroy it. The clock is ticking. To understand why this dam matters so much, we need to go back to the 1950s. Back then, this region wasn't called Zambia or Zimbabwe. It was northern and southern Rhodesia, British colonies going through a massive mining boom. Copper, coal, chrome, they were pulling it out of the ground faster than ever before. And the mining industry needed one thing above everything else: electricity. Massive amounts of it. But there wasn't nearly enough power to meet demand. So the colonial government made a bold decision. They'd build a dam on the Zambezi River at a spot called Kariba Gorge, the narrowest point along the entire river, with massive basalt rock walls on both sides. The geology was perfect for what's called an arch dam. Here's how that works. Instead of using sheer weight to hold back water like most dams, an arch dam curves into the canyon walls, using them to absorb the enormous pressure. It's an elegant engineering solution, but they didn't just want any dam. They wanted the biggest reservoir the world had ever seen. Why go so massive? Because a giant reservoir meant guaranteed power for decades, even during droughts. With 185 cubic kilometers of water behind it, this dam could generate electricity year-round, no matter what. It was insurance, a long-term bet on industrial growth, and that bet was about to require one of the most challenging construction projects Africa had ever seen: building the impossible. Construction began in November 1955. The challenge? Build one of the world's largest dams in one of Africa's most remote locations, and do it in just 4 years. The engineering team chose a double curvature concrete arch dam at 128 meters high and 579 meters long. It would curve both horizontally and vertically. This design transfers the enormous pressure of 185 cubic kilometers of water into the canyon's solid basalt walls, instead of relying on the dam's weight alone. It's the same principle used on the Hoover Dam in the United States, which was finishing construction around the same time in 1936. Both represented the cutting edge of 1950s dam engineering. The scale was staggering. Roads had to be carved through rugged terrain to reach both riverbanks. An airstrip was built from scratch, essential for emergency medical evacuations, since the nearest railway was 480 kilometers away. 2 entire construction towns were built just to house the 7,000-person workforce. But the local Tonga people had concerns engineers didn't take seriously. According to legend, Nyami Nyami, a great river god believed to live in the rocks, would never allow the dam to be built. In 1957, they were proven right, but not for spiritual reasons. The Zambezi unleashed what's now called a 1,000-year flood, the highest flow ever recorded on that river. Water poured over the cofferdam, protecting the construction area. Bridges were swept away, equipment destroyed. 11 Italian workers were killed, their bodies later found embedded in the wet cement of the dam wall. An additional 75 workers died during construction from various accidents and diseases. The flood was so catastrophic that engineers had to redesign the spillway twice, increasing its capacity from 6,800 to 7,400, and finally to 9,200 cubic meters per second. And yet, despite this disaster, the project finished 6 months ahead of schedule. By completion in 1959, 86 workers had died on site. Over 1 million cubic meters of concrete had been poured. The cost? $135 million in 1950s money, roughly $1.4 billion today. But there was another cost. To create Lake Kariba, approximately 57,000 Tonga people had to be relocated from the Gwembe Valley. Their villages and farmland disappeared beneath rising water. Meanwhile, Operation Noah rescued about 6,000 wild animals between 1958 and 1963, a rescue that made international headlines. The human displacement largely ignored. When Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother officially opened the dam on May 17, 1960, Lake Kariba stretched 280 kilometers with a surface area of 5,580 square kilometers, one of the largest artificial lakes ever created. It was a triumph of mid-century engineering, and for the next 6 decades, it did exactly what it was designed to do. The power it generates. Kariba Dam generates an impressive 2,130 megawatts of electricity capacity. The power is split between 2 underground powerhouses. North Bank Station supplies around 1,080 megawatts to Zambia's copper mines and industries. South Bank Station supplies roughly 1,050 megawatts to Zimbabwe's manufacturing and agriculture sectors. These two nations have managed this shared resource without major conflict for over 60 years. The Zambezi River Authority, established in the 1960s, coordinates operations between Zambia and Zimbabwe. It's one of Africa's rare success stories in transboundary water management. At full capacity, Kariba generates over 10,000 gigawatt hours of electricity annually. Clean, renewable power that drives the entire regional economy. But the dam's stability depends on 2 critical factors. First, the canyon walls and rock foundation must remain intact. Second, the spillway gates must function properly to release excess water during floods. Over the past 70 years, water cascading from the spillway gates at tremendous force has gradually eroded the bedrock at the base of the dam, carving out an 80-meter deep plunge pool. Here's where it gets dangerous. That erosion has been moving upstream toward the dam's foundation. If it reaches the base of the structure, failure would be catastrophic. And that's not even the worst part. The 2 crises destroying it. Kariba Dam isn't facing one problem. It's facing 2 massive crises simultaneously, and they're feeding off each other. Crisis 1, concrete breaking from the inside. In the 1990s, engineers discovered something alarming during routine inspections. The concrete in the spillway gates was literally cracking and warping due to something called alkali-silica reaction. This is a chemical process where reactive minerals inside the concrete expand over decades, creating internal stress. Think of it like rust, but happening inside the concrete itself. The problem? Those 6 spillway gates are the only mechanism for controlling water levels. If they fail to open during a monsoon flood, water can't escape. If they jam in the closed position, water backs up behind the dam and eventually overtops the wall. Either way, it's catastrophic. There's also the foundation stability issue. That 80-meter erosion we mentioned, it's creating weak points in the bedrock directly beneath the dam. If that erosion continues, it could undermine the dam's ability to transfer water pressure into the canyon walls, the entire principle that keeps an arch dam upright. Dam engineers were clear. These aren't problems you can patch. They're structural failures that demand urgent intervention. Crisis 2. The drought making everything worse. In 2024, Southern Africa was hit by a severe drought, one of the worst in 40 years. Lake Kariba's water levels plummeted to just 10% of usable capacity. Zimbabwe had to shut down its entire power station. Industries stalled. Hospitals lost power. Millions went without electricity for days at a time. But here's the vicious cycle. The Kariba Rehabilitation Project is partly funded by electricity revenue. When water levels drop, power generation drops. Money to fix the dam disappears. So you have a dam with critical structural failures, but its own power output is too low to fund the repairs. It's like trying to fix your car while you're driving it, but you're also running out of gas. Why can't they just build a new one? Everyone asks. Why not just build a replacement dam? The answer is scale. You can't drain 185 cubic kilometers of water without destroying 2 entire national economies. There's no alternative power source while construction happens. And unlike some dam projects where you can build a new one nearby and gradually transition, Kariba has to stay operational the entire time it's being repaired. So instead, engineers are doing something unprecedented, saving an aging giant from the inside out while racing against time and drought. The window is closing. The $294 million rescue mission. In 2017, international partners launched the Kariba Dam Rehabilitation Project, a $294 million operation funded by the European Union, the World Bank, the African Development Bank, Sweden. It was supposed to finish by February 2025. Instead, it's now scheduled to wrap up by December 31st, 2026. Why the delay? Because the problems turned out to be far more complex than initial inspections suggested. The work is happening in two main phases. Phase 1, fixing the plunge pool erosion. Engineers built a massive cofferdam to isolate the area, then excavated and reinforced the damaged bedrock with 5,241 cubic meters of concrete. This component was completed in July 2024, with the cofferdam removed by October. It was a critical milestone, stabilizing the dam's foundation before further damage could occur. Phase 2, replacing the spillway gates. This is the real engineering challenge. 6 spillway gates, each deteriorated by decades of corrosive water and concrete degradation, need to be replaced with chemically resistant alternatives. As of December 2025, the work is 82% complete on 4 gates. The remaining 2 are on the critical path. One delay cascades the entire timeline. All this work is happening on a functioning, power-generating dam. Engineers can only operate during the dry season when water levels are low enough to access the structures. They cannot shut it down. And here's the cruel irony. Low water means less power generation. Less power means lower revenue. Lower revenue means less money to fund repairs. It's a race against physics, drought, and the calendar. Yet somehow, Zambia and Zimbabwe have managed to keep this project moving forward together, coordinating through the Zambezi River Authority, sharing costs, agreeing on priorities. It's not perfect, but it's working, and it has to. In less than 1 year, the dam's future will either be secured or it won't. The bigger picture. If we zoom out, Kariba isn't just about one dam. It's a preview of what's coming across Africa and the entire developing world. Over 200 large dams dot the African continent, most built during the colonial era or between the 1950s and 1980s. Today, they're all aging at the same time, facing droughts and extreme weather their designers never imagined. The Kariba rehabilitation is a test case. If it succeeds, it shows how African nations can manage their aging mega infrastructure. If it fails, the consequences ripple across the entire region. But it's also a warning. The $294 million bill for Kariba reflects decades of deferred maintenance, colonial-era infrastructure handed to newly independent nations without resources to maintain it. Across Africa and the developing world, hundreds of dams and power systems built in the mid-20th century are reaching the end of their design lives. Kariba isn't just one dam's fight for survival, it's a race against time for an entire generation of aging infrastructure. Final thoughts. So there you have it. The world's largest reservoir, holding 185 trillion liters of water, is quietly falling apart. Engineers are racing to save it with a $294 million rescue mission that has succeeded because failure isn't an option. 3.5 million lives depend on it. What do you think? Can they pull it off? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to know. And if you found this story as wild as I did, hit that like button and subscribe, because what's coming next is even more mind-blowing. Picture a country where water shouldn't exist, where rain barely falls, where rivers run dry, and yet somehow engineers figured out how to create an infinite water loop, recycling every single drop over and over again so they'd never run out. It's one of the most brilliant water engineering systems ever built, and it's saving millions of lives right now. You definitely don't want to miss that one. Thanks for watching. See you there.